Last week we dealt with the introduction. We dealt with your attitude to the world, the two extremes, and then we got on to what separation means. And I'd like to read again 1 Corinthians 6:14 to 7:1. 1 Corinthians 6:14 to 7:1. Maxine, please.
I don't mean 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians 6:14.
Be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what accord has Christ with Belial? Or what part as a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. Therefore, having these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of the Lord.
Okay, we remarked on that, and then we split it up, and we said, what does Paul mean be separate from the world? And he gives the answers in the rhetorical questions he asks in verses 14 to 16. And we dealt with separate from sin. What partnership does righteousness have with iniquity? And so we dealt with that last week, and now we want to go on with separate from darkness. We came to the decision last week to resolve to be governed by Scripture alone. Resolve to be governed by Scripture alone. And so we want to go on to separate from darkness. What fellowship does light have with darkness? What is meant by darkness as opposed to light? John referred to darkness in 1 John 2, 15 to 17. Please, Ross. 1 John 2.
Do not love the world. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever.
John writes, do not love the world. So the question arises, what world? Before we can be separate, we need to know what we are to be separate from. John himself defines the world he is talking about. He defines it as the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Lust and pride are thus characteristics of the world which we should shun. This is obviously the world of fornication, malice, covetousness, arrogant self-will. It is the world that is the product of Satan and human rebellion. It is the world that does not reflect God's goodness in any way, nor the mandate he has given the human race to go and subdue the earth and fill it with fruitfulness. All men, saved or unsaved, do consciously or unconsciously fulfill this mandate to subdue the earth and fill it with fruitfulness. That is excluded. Paul says about the same in Galatians 5:19 to 21. Please, Rosie. Galatians 5:19 to 20.
Deeds of the flesh are evident, which are immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, disputes, dissensions, and factions, envying, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these, of which I forewarn you, just as I have forewarned you, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God.
So Paul lists a whole list there of things which he would call the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. But however, there are many Christians who would not go and see a good play. They wouldn't go and see a good film or a concert. But however, they would be shamelessly selfish or greedy. They strain against gnats and swallow camels. They are, in fact, the latter-day Pharisees. A concert, a book, a meal, some pleasure activity can be proper and innocent, but if they become a focal point for lust and pride, they must be avoided. Making rules that say you must not do this or you must not do that is not holiness, it's legalism. Paul gave a better criterion. Philippians 4:8. Please, Neville. Philippians 4:8.
Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good, of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things.
Notice that whatever is excellent or praiseworthy may be confidently pursued. Who is to say what this is? You are, with reference to the Bible and the leading of the Spirit. The rough rule is that as long as no lust or pride is attached to it, we should be sweetly reasonable. Thus, therefore, there is no secular or sacred. So let's look at that. Secular versus sacred. Many Christians view with suspicion the physical world, including natural pleasures and the human body. The biblical authors didn't have this problem. Psalm 24, verse 1. Please, Penny.
The earth is the Lord's, and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein.
Here's a joyful statement of celebration of God's world. There is a world that lies in sin and rebellion, but the larger world remains God's.
Amen.
The earth and all its fullness still rests under the divine blessing. Genesis 1:31. Please, Gina. Genesis 1:31.
Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
Man is still fulfilling the divine mandate. When he goes out into the world, seizes its fullness and shapes and subdues it to create his homes or his cities, his employment, leisure and culture, he is literally fulfilling the divine mandate. Genesis 1:28.
God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves through the earth."
So we have to be careful because this is before the fall, isn't it? So let's look at God's instructions after the fall. Genesis 9, verses 1 and 2.
So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth and every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth and all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hand."
Again, God said, be fruitful, fill the earth, the beasts and the birds, the fish. I now give you everything. This mandate is still in operation and still being honoured by God. Paul quoted Psalm 24 in a very interesting connection. 1 Corinthians 10, 25 and 26, please, Di. 1 Corinthians 10, 25 and 26.
Eat whatever is sold in the meat market, asking no questions for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness.
Paul had not surrendered the earth to the ungodly. Everything in it was God's and could be received with thanksgiving. Now, I know Paul uses food as an example, but the thought is equally applicable to other controversial issues.
Absolutely.
Whatever is sold in the marketplace of life could be bought as long as it conformed to the criteria of true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy. To raise questions on grounds of conscience about such things is to call unholy what God deems holy. Paul continues that thought. Oh dear. In 1 Corinthians 10, 29 and 30. 1 Corinthians 10, 29 and 30.
Conscience, I say, not thine own, but of the other. For why is my liberty judged of another man's conscience? For if I by grace be a partaker, why am I evil spoken of? For what? For that for which I give thanks. Whether therefore...
One Bible version translates this as, why should my freedom be judged by another's conscience? Why am I denounced because of something I thank God for? Again, he's speaking about food. But it can be applied to whatever you do. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Maxine. 1 Corinthians 10:31.
Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God.
If the Lord and all it if the earth and all it contains is the Lord's, if Christians are told to enjoy all that is true, lovely, gracious, excellent, honourable and worthy of praise, then it's totally wrong to discern between secular and sacred. If all these things are God's, then they are all sacred, no matter who fashioned them. It doesn't matter whether an unsaved person fashioned them or a saved person fashioned them. They're all obeying the mandate given by God. Humanity obeys God unwittingly, but obeys God nonetheless. All that he gives me by his hand, or the hand of men, is sanctified by my faith and my thanksgiving. However, Paul lays down another guideline. He says these things are in themselves good, which I can participate freely in, but which may not be expedient or profitable, or which may offend another person. 1 Corinthians 10:23. Please, Ross.
All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify.
And 1 Corinthians 6:12, please, Rosie. 6:12.
Things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by anything.
Now, Paul takes for granted, we must understand this, that sin and corruption are omitted. But otherwise, virtually everything in this world is permitted to him, he says. He has total liberty of conscience. He's not worried about worldliness, but there are guidelines which he decides in his day-to-day action. Okay? And it's really in Philippians 2:21.
All seek their own, not the things which are of Christ Jesus.
Okay. So he asks himself, will this thing help or hinder him in his service to the Lord? Will it help or hinder him, his health, that is, and so affect his service to the Lord? Will it help or hinder his joy in his service to the Lord? Will it help or hinder the interests of Christ? Will it tend to build up or cast down? Will this thing draw him into self-seeking or draw him into loving and helping others? Is it a pleasure, simple and innocent? Or draw him into loving others and helping them? It is a pleasure, simple and innocent, or is it gained at the expense of others? Is it just a recreation or an act of greedy self-indulgence? Will this thing strengthen his liberty in Christ or bring him into physical, mental, or spiritual slavery. Will this thing violate the law of love, which obliges him to be careful of others' feelings and not deliberately cause offence? In which case, 1 Corinthians 8, 7 to 13. It's quite a chunk. 1 Corinthians 8, 7 to 13.
There is not in everyone. Oh dear.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
However, there is not in everyone that knowledge, for some, with consciousness of the idol, until we eat it as a thing of offended to an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. But food does not condemn us to God, command us to God, for neither if we eat are we the better, nor if we do not eat are we the worse. But beware, lest someone... Sorry, I can't read it.
But take heed lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. For if any man see thee, which hast knowledge, sit at meat in the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols, and through thy knowledge shall the weak brother perish for whom Christ died? But when ye sin so against the brethren, and wound their weak conscience, ye sin against Christ. Wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I will no longer eat flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. He also continues in 1 Corinthians 10, 28 and 29.
I say to you, this was offered to idols. Do not eat it for the sake of the one who told you and for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness. Conscience, I say, not your own, but that of the other. For why is my liberty judged by another man's conscience?
Okay, let's understand what he's talking about. In Romans 14, he deals with this at length, and we're going to go into Romans 14 later on. What he basically says is you can eat anything, but if it caused your weaker brother to stumble, don't eat it in front of him. Now what he's talking about is meat that's been offered to idol. What they used to do is offer a piece of meat to an idol, and it would sit there for a while, and then somebody would whip it away and sell it in a meat market called the shambles. So if you happened to be passing that time, you could buy a big piece of meat at a very reasonable price. And you invite all your guests around and say, okay, let's have a party. Now, if you get invited, don't ask where the meat came from. Because if you ask, he's got to have to tell you it came from the shambles. And immediately you know that, you can't eat it. You have no problem. You know that this idol is nothing. You know that please, if I give thanks to God, I'm okay. But there may be a weaker brother there who doesn't have this freedom. And therefore, as he says, I'll not eat meat again, rather than cause a weaker brother to stumble. Now understand, he's talking about meat. But we can go on. Books, films, etc., etc. You can go into all these things. And I used to talk about red light issues and green light issues. Red lights, well, you know what they are. The Bible says, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, and so on and so forth. You know what the green lights are? Well, we can do this with ease. But there are the amber lights, where some people will say and some people won't. Gentlemen, ladies, we have a number of amber light issues amongst us, I'm sure. But it doesn't matter. If your faith is strong, that's great. But don't cause your weaker brother to stumble. Okay? Any questions? One of the things I want you to grasp is that the Jewish people, they really have quite a laugh. There is a prayer that's to be said while sitting on the toilet. And as David Pawson says, when you're my age and everything works properly, then you need to offer a prayer and say thank you. Which is fairly reasonable. But you see, there is no secular and sacred. God made it all. The fact that some people practice the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life, is beside the point. God made it all. Father, we do thank you, Lord. We ask that you would open our eyes that we may fully understand. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.